rain continued to fall over the rocky cliffs of Tavares. It was not like rain on Earth. The drops were heavier, glowing faintly as they touched the ground. They left trails of silver light that slowly faded. The sound was soft, almost like music. Inside the small stone home, Ryan sat near the warm wall light, drying his clothes and trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The alien woman moved quietly around the room, placing strange tools back on shelves. Her movements were smooth, practiced, and calm. Ryan watched her closely, trying to learn more about her. She was tall for her kind, but still much smaller than him. Her skin had a gentle green tone that reflected light like polished stone. Her hair was silver white and tied behind her head in a loose braid. He wanted to thank her again for saving him, but the translator only caught fragments of her language. When he tried to speak, the words came out broken and strange. Human thanks, help, safe. She tilted her head, trying to understand. Then she said something slowly. The translator caught part of it. Safe, stay, rain. Dangerous, Ryan nodded. He understood that she was saying the rain outside was dangerous. He looked at his wet boots and saw small burns forming where the drops had touched the material. The rain was slightly acidic. No wonder she had hurried him inside earlier. He looked around the small house. The walls curved in perfect circles. A table stood at the center with glowing lines running through it like veins. Small crystals floated in the air above, casting steady light. It was unlike any human home, but somehow it felt peaceful. The alien woman walked to a round panel on the wall and pressed her hand on it. The panel opened, revealing a tray of warm food. She placed it in front of Ryan. The smell was pleasant, something between fruit and baked bread. Ryan hesitated, but then took a bite. The taste surprised him. It was soft, slightly sweet, and full of energy. He smiled and nodded to show his thanks. She smiled faintly in return. The translator crackled, picking up her voice. Eat, strong, heal. Ryan pointed to her and asked slowly, Name? She paused for a moment, then touched her chest. Tali. He repeated it carefully. Tali. She nodded. Then she pointed to him. Human to eat name? He tapped his chest. Ryan. She tried to repeat it. Ryan. The pronunciation was close enough. He smiled, and she laughed softly at her attempt. The moment felt small, but it carried warmth. After the meal, Tali showed him how to clean his wound properly using a blue gel that closed the skin instantly. He was amazed at the technology. Human medicine had nothing like it. His leg already felt better. He looked at her again, wondering why she had helped him when the others outside seemed afraid. He tried to ask her through gestures. He pointed outside, then at her, then placed a hand over his heart. She seemed to understand what he was asking. Her silver eyes softened. She said something in her language that the translator picked up partially. Others fear, human strong, old stories, danger, but not all same. Ryan realized that her people knew humans by reputation, perhaps not a good one. Still, she had chosen to trust him. He felt a quiet respect for her courage. As the night grew darker, thunder rolled across the cliffs. The walls of the small house glowed brighter to keep away the shadows. Ryan could not sleep. He sat near the window, watching the rain flow down in glowing streams. Every flash of light reminded him of home, of city lights on Earth, of the ocean reflecting stars. It made him feel both close and far from everything he knew. Tali walked over and sat across from him. She held a small round device in her hands, turning it over like a puzzle. When Ryan looked at it curiously, she held it out to him. He took it carefully. It looked like a crystal sphere filled with liquid light. When he touched it, images appeared, floating shapes of mountains, rivers, and stars. It was a holographic map. She pointed at a mark on the map and said, Tavares. Then she pointed at another far away. Human space. Ryan nodded, understanding. The distance between them was massive. His escape pod had traveled far beyond human routes. It might take months before anyone found him. He felt the weight of isolation pressing on him. Yet when he looked at Tali, who watched him quietly, he felt a little less alone. She seemed to sense his sadness. She said softly, home far, but sky same. Her words were simple, but they reached deep into him. He looked at the stars through the small window. Yes, no matter how far he was, the same stars shone above both their worlds. Morning came slowly. The rain stopped and the air outside was clear again. Tali prepared something like tea made from glowing leaves. She handed him a cup. It tasted strange but refreshing. He felt his strength returning. She motioned for him to follow her outside. The forest below the cliffs looked brighter in daylight. Streams of light ran across the ground like living rivers. Small creatures with translucent wings moved between the trees. Ryan stared in awe. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Tali noticed his wonder and smiled proudly. She said a few words that the translator turned into, "World lives with us. We protect, we listen." He nodded. "Beautiful," he said simply. She repeated the word slowly, "Beautiful," and seemed to like how it sounded. As they walked, Ryan noticed that her people were still wary of him. Some watched from a distance. A few closed their doors when they saw him. Tali tried to comfort him by saying, "They not know you yet." He understood. Trust took time. He decided not to cause any trouble. His focus was to fix his broken equipment so he could send a signal. Tali led him to a storage room filled with old metal scraps and broken tools. She told him he could work there. Ryan began to check the pieces, hoping to find something useful. He used his multi-tool to repair small circuits, his large hands steady despite the delicate work. Tali watched him with curiosity. She was amazed at how easily he handled heavy parts that her people could barely lift. "You strong," she said through the translator. He laughed softly. "Maybe too strong. I break things sometimes." She laughed too, the sound light and clear. They worked side by side for hours, trading small words and gestures. He taught her how to twist a wire for better contact. She showed him how to use crystal energy to power small devices. Together they managed to repair his translator to better accuracy. Now they could understand each other more clearly. When they tested it, Ryan said, "This works better now." Tali smiled. "Your words sound clean." "Before they were broken," he chuckled. "Yes, I talk better now." As the day passed, they sat outside watching the clouds. Tali told him about her people's fear of humans. Long ago, a small human military ship had entered their system during the expansion years. The soldiers were aggressive, taking resources without permission. Since then, the Varine had kept distance from all human contact. Ryan listened quietly. "Not all humans are like that," he said. She nodded slowly. "I believe. I see you different. You fix, not break." Her words made him smile. He looked down at his large hands and thought about how humans were often seen as destructive. Yet here, he was learning to build trust instead. Later that evening, they returned to the house. Tali cooked another meal while Ryan checked his repaired beacon. It blinked with weak light, but it was not enough to send a signal yet. He needed a stronger power source. Tali offered to take him to the old mining field near the valley the next day. There he could find energy cells. Night came again, quiet except for the soft hum of insects outside. Ryan lay on a floor mat staring at the ceiling. Tali sat nearby studying his broken communicator. The glow from the walls painted their faces with gentle color. Ryan thought about how strange life could be. One day, he was on a human ship with his crew. The next, he was sharing food and stories with someone from another world. Yet he felt no fear, only peace. Before falling asleep, he heard Tali whisper something in her language. The translator caught a few words. "Safe tonight," he smiled before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, Ryan woke to sunlight streaming through the round window. Tali was already up preparing supplies. She handed him a small pack and said, "We go valley. Find power." He nodded and stood up. His leg felt much better now. He followed her outside, ready for the journey. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of glowing flowers. Birds with crystal wings flew overhead. As they walked down the narrow path, Ryan realized that this world, though alien, was starting to feel familiar. Each sound, each sight, made him more determined to survive and return home. He looked at Tali walking ahead of him, her silver hair shining under the sun. She turned and smiled, her eyes calm and strong. He felt grateful to her. Without her help, he would not have survived his first night. They continued walking toward the valley, unaware that others had seen them leave together. Among the cliff dwellings, whispers spread. Some Varan elders were not pleased that one of their kind had sheltered a human. Trouble was beginning to form, though neither Ryan nor Tali knew it yet. For now, they walked side by side through the glowing forest, their shadows stretching long behind them as a new day began on the strange and beautiful world of Tavares. The ship Aurora Trail moved through the darkness of space, its engines glowing faintly against the black sky. It carried a small human crew on a supply route between colonies near the edge of known space. Everything had been quiet until a sudden storm of rock and metal tore across their path. The asteroid field came without warning. The navigation sensors failed to pick it up in time. Within minutes, the ship's hull cracked under heavy impact. Inside the control deck, alarms blared as red lights filled the room. Ryan, a tall and broad-shouldered engineer, rushed between panels trying to stabilize the systems. His uniform was covered in dust and oil, but his movement stayed steady. His large hands pressed against the flickering screens while his voice stayed calm. "We lost engines 2 and 3. Trying to reroute power," he said. But the ship shook again, almost throwing him off his feet. The captain shouted from across the room, "Get to the pods. We're breaking apart." Ryan hesitated. He wanted to stay and keep things running, but he knew there was no saving the ship. The explosion from the lower deck sealed his decision. Smoke filled the air. The emergency lights flashed blue, meaning hull breach. The crew ran toward the escape pods. Ryan followed, helping one officer who had twisted her leg. The deck tilted sideways as they reached the pod bay. He pushed the officer inside first and sealed the hatch. The remaining pods were few. Ryan looked around for others but saw no one alive. He entered the last pod, pressed the release, and felt a hard jolt as it shot away from the dying ship. Through the small window, he saw Aurora Trail break apart, its pieces scattering across the stars like sparks from a dying fire. For a long time, Ryan said nothing. The pod floated silently through space. His breathing was the only sound. The emergency system showed limited oxygen and power. He checked the radar. No human ships in range. Only one faint signal appeared, a nearby planet with a weak energy signature. It might be inhabited. He decided to take the risk. He adjusted the pod's small thrusters and set course for the signal. The planet's surface came into view, glowing faint green under its twin moons. As the pod entered the thin atmosphere, heat surrounded the glass. The controls sparked. The pod began to shake violently. Ryan strapped himself in, holding the side handle with both hands. The landing sequence failed and the pod spun out of control. He braced himself for impact. The crash was hard. The sound of metal scraping against stone echoed through his helmet. When it stopped, everything went quiet except for the hiss of cooling metal. Ryan felt pain in his shoulder and leg, but he was alive. He forced open the door. Cold air rushed in. He stepped out into a forest filled with strange light. The trees were tall and silver, their leaves glowing with soft blue veins. The ground was covered in moss that shined under his boots. The sky was dark, but stars could still be seen through the thin mist that hung over the forest. Ryan took a slow breath. The air was strange but breathable. His suit scanner confirmed it was safe. He looked back at the pod. The back half was crushed and the transmitter was broken. There would be no quick rescue. He pulled out a small pack of supplies and a portable toolkit. His leg hurt with every step, but he kept moving. He needed shelter before night fully came. The forest was alive with sounds he did not recognize. Somewhere far away, something moved through the trees, its steps light but quick. Ryan's instincts told him he was not alone. He moved carefully, keeping one hand near his sidearm, though he hoped he would not need it. After some distance, he reached a small clearing where glowing insects floated in the air like drifting sparks. He rested there for a moment. The pain in his leg grew worse. He removed a small medical patch from his kit and pressed it to his skin. It released warmth, numbing the ache. He thought about the others from the Aurora Trail. Maybe some pods had escaped in different directions. Maybe someone would find him if they traced the wreckage. But deep inside, he knew rescue could take weeks, maybe months. He would have to survive on his own for now. He built a small shelter using the remains of a broken pod panel and a fallen tree branch. It was not much, but it kept the wind away. He tried to repair his communicator, but the internal chip was burnt. The translator still worked, though its signal blinked weakly. He kept it close, hoping it might pick up transmissions. As night fell, the forest changed. The blue glow became brighter, and the plants seemed to hum softly. The sound was calming at first, but then turned unsettling. Ryan tightened his jacket and sat close to a small light from his suit. He looked around, eyes scanning for any movement. Hours passed before he saw the first sign of life. Across the clearing, a shape moved between the glowing trees. It was tall but thin, moving with quiet grace. Ryan froze. The figure stopped too. For a few moments, neither moved. Then it disappeared behind a rock. Ryan waited. His heart beat faster. He did not know if the creature was dangerous. He turned on his wrist light and aimed it toward the spot. The beam reflected off something metallic, maybe armor or a tool. Then a soft voice came through the air, speaking a language he could not understand. Ryan raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. He pointed to his damaged pod and then to his leg. The figure stepped out from the shadows. Under the blue light, he could see her better. She was clearly not human. Her skin had a pale green glow and her eyes were bright silver. Her body was slender and wrapped in a smooth fabric that looked alive. She carried a small scanner in her hand. She said something again, her tone careful but not hostile. Ryan tried to speak through the translator. "Human, crash, need help." The device stuttered and glitched. The alien tilted her head, trying to understand. She repeated one word softly. "Human." Ryan nodded quickly. He took a step forward, then stopped as she raised a hand, signaling him to wait. She looked around the forest and gestured for him to follow. Her movements were quick and cautious, like someone guiding a stranger through dangerous ground. They walked through narrow paths between glowing trees. Ryan's large frame made it difficult to move quietly. Branches snapped under his boots. The alien turned back several times, checking if he was keeping up. After a long walk, they reached the edge of a rocky cliff where lights shimmered below. Ryan realized there was a small settlement built into the cliffs, houses shaped like shells, glowing from within. Streams of light ran along the walls and figures moved inside. It was beautiful and peaceful. But when the alien woman led him closer, others noticed. Small groups of her people appeared at doorways, whispering and staring. Their eyes were wide with fear or surprise. Ryan could feel the tension in the air. He tried to keep his hands visible and his posture low. The alien spoke quickly to the others, trying to calm them, but some backed away. Ryan caught his reflection in the glass of one of the houses. He looked enormous next to them, almost twice their size. His heavy boots and dark clothes made him look like a soldier, even though he was just an engineer. The woman looked back at him with uncertain eyes. She seemed to be deciding what to do. Finally, she gestured toward a small door in the rock wall. She said something, and though the translator did not catch every word, he understood her tone. It was cautious kindness. She led him inside her home. The space was small and round, with smooth walls that glowed softly. Strange symbols were etched into the metal. Ryan had to bend down to fit through the doorway. The air inside was warm and filled with a faint floral scent. The woman pointed to a bench made of woven material and spoke again. "It'll be a tight squeeze, but come in." Ryan gave a small, grateful nod and sat down carefully. The bench creaked under his weight, but it held. She brought a small container of glowing liquid and handed it to him. He took a sip. It tasted like cool water mixed with something sweet. She examined his injured leg and then opened a small case filled with medical tools. Her hands moved quickly but gently. Ryan watched, surprised at her skill. He tried to speak again through the translator. "Thank you." The device translated poorly, but she seemed to understand the tone. She gave a small smile, the first he had seen from her. For the first time since the crash, Ryan felt his fear fade. The room was quiet except for the hum of the lights. Outside, the sound of rain began to fall against the stone. He realized how far he was from home, yet for now he was alive, safe, and not alone. He leaned back and looked at the ceiling, where tiny points of light moved like stars. The alien woman sat nearby, studying his translator with curiosity. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence between them was not empty. It carried a sense of strange understanding. Two beings from different worlds, both uncertain, both surviving the same night. Outside, the storm continued, and the stars of a new world glimmered beyond the clouds. For Ryan, it was the start of something he did not yet understand, a story of trust that would change both their worlds forever. The morning air was cool and clear as Ryan and Tali made their way down the rocky trail that led from the cliffs into the forest valley. The sun on Tavares was pale blue, and its light gave everything a soft glow. Mist floated over the trees, and the sound of distant rivers echoed across the land. Ryan carried a small pack of tools on his back. He walked behind Tali, careful not to step too heavily on the delicate ground plants that lit up under their feet. His steps were louder than hers, but he moved as quietly as his heavy frame allowed. Tali walked with steady confidence, her eyes scanning the path ahead. She carried a thin staff that doubled as a scanner. Every few minutes she would stop and read its faint signals. "The mining field is close," she said. The translator carried her calm voice and clear words now. Ryan smiled at how much easier it was to understand her since they had fixed it. The forest soon gave way to an open valley filled with stone pillars and glowing pools. The remains of an old Varian mining outpost stood at the center. Rusted machines lay half-buried in moss. Crystals still pulsed faintly in the broken towers. Ryan stopped to take in the view. "Beautiful," he said softly. Tali nodded. "Long ago my people came here for energy." Then they stopped. "We do not dig deep anymore. The world must rest," Ryan understood. Humans had a different way. They took resources wherever they found them, sometimes without thinking about the balance. He respected that Tali's people wanted harmony with their world. Still, he needed a power cell to send a rescue signal. Without it, he would never reach his people. They searched the ruins for several hours. Ryan used his strength to lift broken panels and move heavy stones, while Tali used her scanner to detect active energy sources. The sun rose higher as the valley filled with shimmering light. At last, Tali's scanner beeped softly. "There," she said, pointing toward a collapsed tunnel. The energy signature was strong. Ryan crouched down and began pulling away the rocks. His muscles strained, but he worked with care. Dust filled the air, and the sound of cracking stone echoed through the valley. Behind the rubble, they found a large metallic core still glowing faintly. Ryan brushed away the dirt and smiled. "Perfect. This will work." Tali knelt beside him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "So small for so much power," she said. He nodded. "Old human tech is different, but power is the same. Energy is universal." She watched as he attached a few cables and used his tools to stabilize the energy flow. Sparks flashed, and the small beacon in his pack came to life. Its light blinked steadily, sending a pulse upward through the sky. Tali looked up. "What is it doing?" Ryan smiled with hope. "It sends a message. My people will know I am here. Maybe they will come soon." For a moment, Tali smiled too, but her expression slowly changed. Her ears twitched slightly and her eyes narrowed. "If your people hear it," she said, "others will too." Ryan paused. He knew what she meant. The Varan guards would detect the signal as well. To them, a foreign transmission would be a threat. Still, he could not stay hidden forever. He had to take the risk. "We have to hope they come first," he said firmly. Tali sighed. "I hope so too." They packed the core and made their way back toward the cliffs. The forest felt different now. The calm silence was gone. Ryan could sense movement in the distance, faint shadows between the glowing trees. Tali noticed too. She tapped her staff lightly, switching it to a defensive mode. "We are being followed," she whispered. Ryan stopped and listened. He heard faint clicking sounds like metal claws on stone. Then a flash of silver moved behind a tree. A moment later, 2 Varan scouts stepped into view. Their armor shimmered like glass and their weapons glowed at the tips. One of them shouted in Varan language, and the translator caught the meaning. "Step away from the human." Tali froze. She knew the patrols were strict about contact with outsiders. The lead scout looked angry. "You broke the law, Tali. The council forbade all contact with humans." Ryan raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I only want to go home," he said calmly. The scout ignored him. "Humans bring war. You will not stay here." He moved closer, his weapon humming. Tali stepped in front of Ryan. "He is not like the others," she said. "He saved no one yet, but he means peace. You must trust me." The scout's eyes were cold. "You endanger us all." He pointed the weapon directly at Ryan. Before he could fire, Ryan moved quickly. With one strong motion, he grabbed a fallen metal pipe and struck the weapon aside. The blast hit the ground, sending sparks across the moss. The second scout jumped back in shock. Ryan did not attack again. He only stood protectively in front of Tali. Tali shouted at them to stop, her voice echoing across the valley. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, to Ryan's relief, the scouts lowered their weapons slightly. They looked at Tali with disappointment but did not fire again. The lead scout said, "The council will hear of this. Hide him if you must, but we will return." They turned and vanished into the forest, their glowing armor fading from sight. Tali let out a long breath. Ryan looked at her, worried. "They will come back, won't they?" She nodded slowly. Yes, they always obey the council. They think they protect us. Ryan looked toward the sky where his beacon light still pulsed. We need to move the signal. If they track it, they will find us both. Together, they hurried back to her home on the cliff. Ryan dismantled the beacon and built a small decoy device using old parts. He placed it far away in a cave below the valley. If the guards came, they would follow the false signal. When he returned, Tali was waiting near the entrance, watching the horizon. The blue sun was sinking, painting the world in silver and violet. Her expression was thoughtful. Why do humans keep going even when everything says stop? She asked. Ryan sat beside her. Because if we stop, we never find what's ahead. Sometimes it's hope, sometimes danger, but we move anyway. She looked at him quietly. That is brave. Or foolish. Maybe both, he laughed softly. Both most of the time. The night grew colder. They went inside. Ryan tried to rest, but his thoughts kept returning to the beacon. He knew his message was out there in space, waiting for a human ship to catch it. He hoped the signal was strong enough. Tali sat by the table, studying her notes. She was drawing patterns of stars, comparing them with human roots Ryan had shown her earlier. She wanted to understand where he came from. Her curiosity made Ryan smile. He had never met anyone so patient and intelligent. Later, she said quietly, "If your people come, will they be kind to us?" Ryan hesitated before answering. "I can't promise for everyone, but I will be." She nodded and said no more. The silence that followed was heavy but not unfriendly. The next morning, Ryan went to check the pod remains again. He wanted to collect anything useful. The forest felt peaceful at first, but as he neared the crash site, he noticed strange footprints around it. They were not Tali's or the guards. They were larger, uneven, and deep in the soil. Something else had found the site. He crouched and examined the marks. The edges glowed faintly, meaning whatever made them carried strong energy. He returned quickly to tell Tali. She listened carefully and frowned. "There are old things in the forest," she said. "Machines left from the war. Some still move. We stay away from them." That night, the sound of distant metal echoed through the cliffs. Ryan and Tali stood outside, watching faint lights move in the distance. They were not stars. "They are searching," Ryan said. Tali nodded. "We must hide the beacon deeper." They climbed down the cliff together and buried the core under thick roots near a glowing stream. As they worked, the air trembled slightly as if something large was moving nearby. Ryan kept his eyes on the shadows. When they returned home, both were tired. Tali prepared warm food while Ryan checked the small scanner. The signal still reached the sky. It was weak but enough. He could only hope it would be found soon. Before sleeping, Tali said softly, "Your people will come." "I feel it," Ryan nodded. "And when they do, I'll tell them about you. About your kindness." Her silver eyes met his. "Kindness is not rare. You only have to look for it." As the night settled, the stars of Tavares shone bright above. Somewhere far away, a human ship might have already caught the faint message from the planet. But on the ground, danger was growing. The Varan Council had learned about the humans' presence, and their commander, Rael, was preparing to act. For now, Ryan slept in peace, unaware that his rescue signal had reached more than just his people. It had also awakened fear among the Varan who believed the old stories that said humans brought fire wherever they went. The next day would test both him and Tali in ways neither could imagine. The sun of Tavares rose slowly above the misty forest. Its light turned the trees golden and reflected from the glowing rivers below. Ryan stood near the cave entrance, adjusting the straps on his small pack. His clothes were torn and covered in dust, but his eyes were steady. Beside him, Tali packed the last of their supplies, small energy cells, dried food, and a canteen filled with purified water. They had been hiding for many days, and both knew that the quiet would not last much longer. The Varan city had sent search patrols across the forests. Ryan had heard their ships flying overhead at night, the deep hum echoing across the cliffs. Each time he heard them, he stayed still, waiting for the sound to fade. Tali listened too, her face tense. She knew that if the guards found him, they would take him away, and she would face punishment for hiding a human. Still, she refused to leave him. That morning, Ryan said, "We can't stay here anymore. They will come soon." Tali nodded, her voice soft. "There is a valley beyond the East Ridge. Old caves there. My people stopped using them years ago. Maybe we can hide there." Ryan helped her lift the supply pack onto her shoulder. The path ahead was steep and narrow. winding through roots and moss-covered stones. As they moved, Ryan felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. Every sound in the forest made him alert. He knew that his large body was easy to see and hard to hide, yet he kept moving, his strength keeping them both steady on the climb. The air was thick with the scent of rain. The glowing plants around them dimmed as clouds gathered above. Tali moved lightly, her small feet silent on the ground. She glanced at Ryan often, watching how he kept balance even with his heavy frame. In her heart, she began to understand something new about humans. Their will to survive was stronger than fear. When they reached the top of the ridge, they stopped to rest. The forest stretched far below them, and in the distance, silver shapes moved among the trees. Tali's breath caught in her throat. "The patrol," she whispered. "They are searching near the crash site." Ryan used his small binoculars to look closer. He could see Varen soldiers scanning the ground with energy sensors. Their leader stood near a floating vehicle, speaking into a communicator. Ryan recognized him from the holograms Tali had shown him. It was Commander Ryal, the same officer who had ordered the search for the large intruder from the stars. "We have to move fast," Ryan said. "They will come this way." Tali pointed to a narrow path leading down the other side of the ridge. "That way goes to the valley. It's longer but safer." They began to descend, stepping carefully between rocks. The forest grew darker and strange insect sounds filled the air. Rain started to fall in soft drops, turning the ground slippery. Ryan helped Tali cross a stream by lifting her over it. She smiled shyly, unused to such gestures. As the rain grew stronger, they found an old shelter carved into the stone. Inside, the walls were covered with ancient Varen symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Tali traced her fingers over them. "These are old prayers," she said. "My ancestors believed they protected travelers." Ryan looked around the cave, inspecting the ceiling and the entrance. "We can stay here for a while," he said. "The rain will hide our tracks." They built a small fire from dry roots. The warm light filled the cave, and the sound of rain outside made it feel safe for a moment. Tali sat close to the fire, holding her knees. She looked at Ryan, who was checking the signal device he had built from the broken parts of his ship. "Will your people come?" she asked quietly. Ryan looked up at her. "Maybe. I sent the signal days ago, but I don't know if it reached them. The range is short." Tali lowered her gaze. "If they come, will you leave right away?" Ryan hesitated. "I have to, but I won't forget what you did for me." Silence filled the cave for a while. The fire crackled softly. Both were thinking about what would happen next. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the ground. A bright flash lit the cave entrance. Ryan jumped up, grabbing his pack. Tali looked frightened. "They found us," she said. Outside, beams of light cut through the trees. The patrol ships had arrived. Voices echoed through the forest. Ryan could hear the metallic sound of Varen scanners sweeping the ground. He quickly pulled out a small device wrapped in metal sheets. It was a decoy beacon he had been building secretly. "Tali," he said firmly, "we have one chance. I will take this and draw them away. You go to the valley entrance. There's an old bridge there. Wait for me." Tali shook her head. "No, if they catch you—" "They won't," Ryan said, his tone calm but serious. "I need you to trust me." He placed a hand on her shoulder and gave a reassuring nod. Then he ran out into the rain, his boots splashing through puddles. The heavy drops fell on his face, but he kept moving. The glow of the Varen lights grew closer. He placed the decoy beacon on a large rock and activated it. The device began to emit a sharp pulse that mimicked his distress signal. Within moments, the patrols turned toward it, thinking they had found him. Ryan hid behind a fallen tree and watched as several Varen soldiers surrounded the false signal. From the shadows, Commander Ral stepped forward. His thin figure moved gracefully, but his expression was hard. "Scan the area," he ordered. The human must be near. Ryan waited until they were close enough. Then he threw a small piece of metal toward another spot to make a noise. The patrol turned and fired their scanners in that direction. Ryan used the distraction to slip away quietly. He moved through the forest, following the path toward the valley. His muscles burned from effort, but he didn't slow down. He could hear the Varen shouting behind him as they realized the signal was fake. Ral's voice carried through the rain. "Find him. Do not let him escape." Ryan reached the edge of the valley and saw Tali waiting near the old bridge. She ran toward him as he approached. "You made it," she said, relief in her eyes. "Not yet," Ryan said, glancing back. We need to cross before they catch up. The bridge was made of ancient metal cables and stone planks swinging over a deep ravine. It looked unstable, but it was their only way. Ryan tested the first plank. It creaked but held. He helped Tali across, keeping his body between her and the wind. Halfway across, they heard shouts. The Varen patrol appeared at the ridge. Ral raised his weapon and fired a shot. The beam hit the cables, causing part of the bridge to break. Tali gasped as the structure shook. Ryan grabbed the rope and pulled her closer to the other side. "Go," he shouted. "Don't stop." They reached the far end just as another beam hit the bridge, making it collapse into the ravine below. The sound of breaking metal echoed through the valley. Tali fell to her knees, breathing hard. Ryan stood beside her, staring at the other side where the Varen soldiers stood watching. Ral looked furious but did not fire again. "You can't run forever, human," Ral shouted. "This world is not yours." Ryan's voice was steady as he answered, "I don't need it to be mine. I just need to survive." Ral turned away and the patrols began to retreat, their ships vanishing into the rain. Ryan helped Tali to her feet. She looked at him with new respect. "You risked your life for me," she said. He smiled faintly. "You did the same. We're even now." They continued walking through the valley until they found another cave. It was smaller but dry. Ryan set down his pack and checked the sky through the narrow opening. The rain was easing and stars began to appear. He felt tired but calm. Tali sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "When your people come, will they take me away too?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "No, they will not harm you. Humans are not like that." Tali smiled slightly. "Maybe not all. You are different from the stories." The night grew quiet. The glowing rivers shimmered under the moonlight and the sound of distant thunder faded. Ryan leaned back against the cave wall, his thoughts heavy but peaceful. He knew that soon the final part of his journey would begin, and whatever happened next, the bond between him and Tali would remain a small but bright spark in the vast universe. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the gentle wind outside. The forest of Tavares whispered softly, as if the planet itself was watching over them. Both human and Varen rested, knowing that their shared courage had changed something deep within their hearts, a silent promise that kindness between worlds could still exist, even in the darkest corners of space. The long night passed slowly in the valley cave. The air smelled fresh after the rain, and the soft glow from the plants outside made the stone walls shine with pale green light. Ryan woke early, listening to the faint hum of distant engines in the sky. His body was sore from the long journey, but his mind was clear. He knew something was changing. Somewhere above, a signal from his hidden beacon was finally reaching someone. Tali was already awake, sitting near the entrance of the cave. She was holding a small device in her hands, its surface flickering with light. When Ryan joined her, she looked up with quiet excitement. "The sky is speaking," she said softly. "I can hear a new sound beyond the clouds." Ryan stepped outside and looked up. The early light of dawn turned the sky silver, and far above he could see a faint flash, a moving speck that was not a Varen ship. His heart quickened. He raised his wrist communicator, hoping it would still work. Static filled the air, then a faint voice broke through. "Signal received. Human distress code identified. Location locked. Hold position." Ryan smiled for the first time in many days. "They found us," he said. Tali's expression shifted between relief and sadness. "So your people are coming," she said. "Yes," Ryan replied, his tone calm but gentle. "We will finally leave this place." They returned to the cave and began to gather their things. Ryan packed the remaining food and energy cells, while Tali carefully rolled up her maps and research notes. Each movement felt heavy, as if time itself had slowed. When Ryan looked around the small cave that had sheltered them, he realized how much this strange world had become a part of his memory. As they prepared to leave, Tali paused near the glowing wall where old symbols had been carved. "My ancestors believed these lights guided lost souls," she said. "Perhaps they guided you here." Ryan touched the stone with his rough hand. "Maybe they did," he said. "Maybe this was the place I was meant to find." They left the cave and began walking toward the open plains where a landing field could be cleared. The ground was soft and damp, and their boots left deep marks in the soil. Above them, clouds moved slowly apart, letting sunlight reach the ground. The planet looked peaceful, as if unaware of the danger and fear that had filled it days before. Tali led the way, her steps light and sure. Ryan followed, his large frame moving carefully through the narrow paths. Every now and then, he stopped to check the communicator. The human ship was drawing closer, its signal stronger with each passing hour. By midday, they reached a wide clearing near a shallow river. The area was flat and open, perfect for a landing. Ryan used pieces of metal from his broken gear to build a small beacon fire, sending a plume of colored smoke into the air. The signal would mark their location clearly. They sat beside the river waiting. The air was quiet except for the soft hum of insects and the trickle of water. Tally looked at Ryan. "You said your people explore many worlds," she began. "Why do you take such risks? Some planets are dangerous. Some, like mine, are not welcoming." Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "Because we want to understand. Humans have always looked for new places even when it is hard. We believe that every world has something to teach us. And sometimes we find friends we never expected." Tali smiled faintly. "You think of me as a friend?" Ryan nodded. "You helped me when you didn't have to. That means more than anything." A distant roar interrupted their quiet moment. Both looked up to see a streak of fire cutting through the clouds. The rescue ship was entering the atmosphere, its hull glowing bright as it slowed its descent. The sound echoed across the valley, making the trees tremble. Tali's eyes widened in awe. "It's beautiful," she said. Ryan smiled. "That's home coming to find me." The ship descended slowly, its thrusters pushing aside dust and leaves. When it landed, the ramp opened and two humans in dark suits stepped out. One of them raised a hand. "Engineer Ryan, we received your beacon. We're here to bring you back." Ryan took a deep breath and looked at Tali. "It's time," he said quietly. As they walked toward the ship, Varen voices suddenly echoed behind them. A patrol group appeared at the edge of the forest, Commander Ryal among them. His face was cold and his soldiers raised their weapons. "Step away from the human," he ordered Tali. "You have broken our law." Tali did not move. She stood between Ryan and the Varen guards, her small frame straight and unshaken. "He saved my life," she said. "He did not harm anyone. You call him dangerous, but he showed mercy. If you punish him, then you punish the truth." Rahl hesitated, his sharp eyes narrowing. "You speak against your own kind." "I speak for what is right," Tali said. Her voice trembled but did not break. "He protected our land from destruction when his ship crashed. He could have taken what he wanted, but he chose peace." Ryan stepped beside her. "If you want someone to blame, take me," he said. "She only helped me survive." The human crew watched quietly, unsure whether to intervene. Rael lowered his weapon slowly. "The council will decide," he said coldly. "But your ship must leave. This world is not open to humans." Ryan nodded. "Understood." He turned to Tali. "You'll be safe?" Tali met his gaze. "Yes, I will tell them the truth." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Ryan reached into his pack and pulled out a small metal badge, the insignia of the human fleet. He handed it to her. "Keep this," he said. "A reminder that one human owes you everything." Tali took it gently, her fingers brushing against his. "And you will remember us?" "Always," he said. The rescue team signaled for departure. Ryan walked up the ramp, his boots echoing against the metal floor. He turned one last time to look at Tali. She stood by the river, holding the badge close to her chest. The rising wind from the engines made her cloak flutter like silver wings. As the ship lifted off, Ryan felt the familiar weight of gravity fade. Through the viewing port, he watched the blue-green world of Tavares grow smaller. The valleys and glowing rivers turned into bright lines, then into a soft point of light among the stars. Inside the ship, one of the crew members handed him a drink and asked, "You survived alone on that planet?" Ryan shook his head. "Not alone. Someone helped me." The crew member smiled. "We'll file the report when we reach the station." "You did well, engineer." Ryan leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes for a moment. The hum of the ship felt comforting after so many silent nights in the forest. Yet deep inside, he missed the soft voices of the Varen and the glow of their world. When he finally opened his eyes, the stars stretched out before him, endless and bright. He began writing a report on his tablet, but his words were more than just technical notes. "The Varen are not weak. They are peaceful, but courage lives in them. One of them saved my life, and I saved hers. Humanity must learn that strength does not always come from size or power. Sometimes it comes from kindness." He signed his name at the bottom and sent the message to the fleet database. The words would become part of the record, a small story among many, but one that carried a truth deeper than data. Hours later, the ship entered faster than light travel. The stars blurred into streams of light outside the window. Ryan sat quietly watching the colors shift across the glass. He thought about Tali standing by the river, about the ancient glowing symbols in the cave, and about the gentle world that had welcomed him when it could have turned him away. He touched the communicator on his wrist, whispering softly to himself. "Thank you, Tali." Back on Tavares, the night settled again over the forest. Tali walked to the same cave where they had hidden before. She placed the metal badge on the glowing wall beside the ancient symbols. The soft blue light reflected from it, making the room shine brighter. She looked up at the stars and smiled. "Safe journey, human," she said. "May your world remember." The wind carried her words into the sky where they vanished among the stars. Far away in the cold darkness of space, a human smiled without knowing why. And in that vast distance between two worlds, a simple truth remained. No matter how different life forms may be, kindness always finds a way to bridge the space between hearts.